Thank you. Thank you so much. Just so grateful to be here and so glad to be back. Yeah, it feels like a long time. Thank you. Okay. So there is a couple of things that I wanted to really talk about tonight and well, tonight here in the UK, whatever time it is where you are. Something that came up quite strongly from the last retreat in Spain that we did, that might be really, useful to share, to elaborate on. So the thing that came up really, really strongly was a lot of people were asking, what is the simplest way to get out of spiritual trouble as soon as possible? Like, what's the fastest way to come out of suffering? And I thought that that was a really intelligent question. It kept coming up in various forms. So it's something that really feels aligned with what drives me as well. Like, what are the shortest shortcuts and what are the fastest ways to get ourselves back onto into peace? If we've lost our equilibrium, if something's happening, then is there one or something that we can do or not do that is going to really bring us out of trouble quickly? Because that was the most important thing to me on my own path, trying to get back out of feeling terrible and back into peace. When we're down there in that place where we feel contracted, where we feel some negative emotion going on and some story playing, whatever that story is, then there's going to be it's going to feel, the longer we hang out there, the deeper that feeling is going to get and the worse it's going to feel and the harder it's going to seem to bring ourselves out. So I really wanted to point to what emerged in the retreat as one of the best ways to really just allow some emotion to pass, allow a story to arise, and really just to allow the contraction in the body. And if we can do that, it's just going to pass its way through. It's the holding on to the story that is really bringing it to kind of sit in the body and really feel very dense and challenging to recover from. And the thing that arose was just to not take it personally. When something arises, then some emotion or some story, or you have some kind of experience that you've had many times, perhaps the same old thing happening in the same old area of our life. So an emotion arises sometimes in a story inside our mind. The body might feel tight and contracted. And it's easy to say, don't take it personally, but what does that actually mean in the moment of trouble, in the moment of greatest need? For me, that was just to remember the best that I could in any moment that this is not mine. This emotion or the story or even the pull of attention to go with the story and all the thoughts that were usually proliferating at that point. For me, it was something to hold on to. So this sense that this is not mine, this is just an emotion playing in the body. This is just a story playing in a head, going through a mind. And this is not anything that I have to do something about. So the fastest way then for me was just to say, this is not mine. Because the thing that normally used to happen was there was something inside that the egoic sense of self, the separate sense of self, as soon as something arises inside, there's an automatic rejection of it or a holding on to it. If it arises and it feels good, there's something that wants to hold on to it. If it arises and it feels bad, there's something that wants to reject it automatically. So what if this is just not yours? Some emotion arises, let's say fear or anger or something, and it just arises, or some shame, or your mind is going around a particular version of a story that it tells over and over again. Do you have to claim ownership of it? Do you have to claim responsibility for fixing it? This is where we sustain the sense of a separate being for such a long time. Okay, I might have seen that I am not really a person at all, actually, not really a someone. There's a body here, but what I am is empty, formless consciousness, intelligence. And then the moment that some emotion arises, it's like, okay, what do I have to do with this now? And the separate sense of self goes into overdrive, trying to get rid of something. But what if it's not the emotion and the story or the way that the body feels? And this could be with physical pain, it could be with emotional pain, anything at all, an experience that you don't like. And just to look at that and to let it happen. So not grasping hold of a strategy of how to deal with this thing. Because in doing that, there's suddenly me and this emotion. This emotion becomes mine. I have to deal with it. I have to, and it's not bypassing or anything, spiritual bypassing. It's letting the emotion totally be felt in the body without trying to do anything with it. And from there, if any contemplation or any inquiry, self-inquiry, or anything needs to happen, it will just begin to occur spontaneously. What is the one thing that sustains the sense of a separate self? Well, it's picking up these things as mine. They're mine, my problem, my karmic pattern to fix. What if there really aren't any karmic patterns that belong to you? There's just thoughts floating through the consciousness and emotions arising in particular bodies as a thought passes through a story. And all of that is just going on by itself. So our mind, our separate sense of self, it doesn't really like to admit that we could just let this happen. Because firstly, it seems like it would feel unpleasant just to let an emotion happen in our body. But actually, it feels peaceful. There'll be peace the moment we do that, as well as the emotion, fear and peace, or anger and peace. Most importantly, we won't be sustaining the sense of a separate being. We can meet anything in our life from one of two places. One is our real nature, which is this infinite, formless, no-thingness, sentience. Or we can meet it from the imaginary separate self that always wants to try to fix something. In any authentic spiritual practice, such as meditation or self-inquiry, etc., is going to show us that this never belonged to us. This never really was our thing to deal with. So, how many karmic patterns do you think you have? How many things do you still have left to transcend? How many emotions do you still have to learn how to transcend or let go? And can you do that without making it personal? Can you be with it? What happens if you just let this thing arise inside? What if the body already knows what to do with this emotion anyway? And the story is going to arise in the mind and then it's going to dissipate really quite quickly if we don't take ownership of it. We're not denying what's here. It's really just, it's what's here. It doesn't have to be my problem to fix. It can just be what's happening, what's here. It's actually a beautiful way to be with what is. It's a real sense of just simply watching, just simply being that space in which it's arising. I'm here, and the body's here, and the body's feeling whatever, and the mind is thinking whatever. And if we've seen even if that there isn't really a separate self, that it doesn't really exist in the way that we think, then this is how we go back into it by saying, what do I do about this? How do I release this? Even how do I transcend this? There's only then this allowing what is to be, and what arises might also be some self-inquiry or some contemplation to deal with it. But it won't come from a heavy sense of having to fix it. It will come from a place of curiosity inside, arising by itself, self-inquiry question or some contemplation question. And in that moment, you are allowing the sense of a separate being to dissolve, or you're sustaining it. There's really nothing in the middle. So can we maybe practice, and maybe we'll do a little meditation later before we finish, just letting things arise, being with our experience, just allowing what is to be, even if it's mind says it's not going to help, it's not going to fix this thing, I have to get rid of it. Could it be that that is actually taking ownership of it as a person? This is mine, my problem. I have to fix this. What if that was the one thing that in real time in this moment was sustaining all the suffering? And if we just didn't do that, we would already be able to live as the freedom that we are. Doesn't mean all emotions and stories would suddenly disappear, but they would just be no more important than the furniture in the room that you're sitting in. You're not upset by the rain falling out of the sky. You know, you're not shouting at the clouds, telling the rain to go away or trying to push it away. Well, I might have done that once or twice, getting upset at the weather, but the trying to do something with it is where we suddenly go from being formless, apparently, to apparently being this separate person again that has to fix this thing. We could just choose in that moment to do, no, I'm just going to let this be. I'm going to see what happens here from and as the awareness, the presence. What happens when I allow this to arise and I don't have to immediately jump into activity with it or relationship with it. Maybe you can just test it out now as I'm speaking by not even trying to do anything with what you're hearing, these words that are coming. Can you just let them happen in your experience? Do you have to try to understand? Here's another way that we sustain the separate self. The same action, one is trying to get rid of what we don't want. The other one is trying to hold on to what we do want. Okay, so I'm listening to this satsang and there's going to be something important in it. So I'm going to really try to listen and understand while I'm listening. What if that is the very thing that is sustaining the sense of separation, this push-pull? I don't want this stuff, it should go away. This stuff I do want. What I'm reading in this scripture or what I'm listening to in a particular teaching, or however my meditation is going today, if I sit to meditate and there's lots of noise going on and inside, outside too, then what do I do with that? Can I just say, well, that's exactly how my meditation is today? Or do I try to go into activity there? What do I do about this? How do I make it different? And it's from this mistaken idea that by trying to do something with what's happening, it's going to change into something I do want. This fear is going to turn into peace by pushing it away, or this meditation is going to turn from the noisiest meditation I've ever had to deep peace and bliss by trying to do something about what I'm experiencing. The actual opposite is really true. The less we even imagine we could do something with it, the more it changes by itself. What if just by listening to this, like really listening to what I'm saying, you're already absorbing everything you need to? Could it be any other way if there isn't really a separate self? If there isn't really a separate self when we look also, can any of your actions to transcend something, get rid of something, hold on to something, actually ever have borne fruit? Or was it really just that whatever emotion I was trying to transcend was going to go anyway? Whatever epiphany I wanted to have was going to happen anyway. I didn't make it happen. And it was quite astounding when I really began to see just exactly how I was sustaining the sense of separation in every moment. Why is this emotion coming up for me? What do I do about it? What if all you could say in answer to that question is, well, it just is. It's just what's arising. It's just the shape I'm playing with right now. I'm showing up as fear or bliss or irritation or the angry person at work or the noisy neighbors or whatever is going on. What if you lost the capacity to make anything personal at all? Is that something that we can actually practice? We could say, well, yeah, I'm just going to relax. I'm going to notice when I'm trying to do something and form myself into an imaginary separate self again. And I'm just going to relax and let what's happening happen. I'm just going to open up and just see what happens when I just let something happen. I mean, has it really worked for us trying to solve these problems anyway? For me, it never did. And there's an endless list of problems also, you know, it never quite run out of things to fix spiritually. Have you noticed? So there was this urge that grew inside me at some point to just stop. And I don't mean like physical activity, the body was still moving and doing all of that, but there was this urge to just stop trying to fix anything. Clearly, it wasn't working. In fact, it was making everything worse. And maybe it was some combination of seeing enough times that I wasn't really that separate person anyway, that doer of actions. I wasn't the practicer of spiritual practice. I wasn't the decision maker of even what practice to choose to do in that moment. I wasn't the thinker of thoughts. I wasn't the believer of beliefs. And I really wasn't the decider of decisions. So why do I keep imagining myself to be that in this moment, just out of reflex when something arises? An emotion pops up and straight away so does this doer that has to do something. Or a story pops up and alongside it, this doer. What do I do about this? Perhaps instead we could ask, how can I be with this? What is it like to be with this? What happens when I just let this be? So let's do that now. Let's just, for 15 minutes or so, 15, 20 minutes, we can just practice this by just allowing or being, or whatever word you want to put to that, being present with whatever is going on for you. And that could be positive or negative, whatever the mind would say. Maybe you're feeling really peaceful. Maybe you're feeling very, very agitated. You can do this with your eyes open or closed. We'll call it a meditation, but nobody's doing it. We're just watching meditation happen. Let's just allow ourselves to relax and get comfy wherever you're sitting. Eyes open or closed, whichever you want. And each passing phenomena that you see, a thought, a belief, an emotion, a sound outside in your environment, see if you can just let it happen. As if all you can do is watch. Even noticing this tendency to want to make it mine. Switching from the imaginary version of me to the real me that just is that space in which the body is appearing and whatever thoughts, emotions. And if a thought or anything arises, just letting it happen. Giving it full permission. Some phenomena are more pleasant, some less. And just allowing them all equally. As if you'd forgotten how to do anything with anything. No tools, no techniques. Just being with what arises and what falls away. And if you get lost at any point, just coming back to letting things be. No spiritual to-do list. Just letting what comes come and what goes go. Not being a person. Not having to do anything with it. in a few moments, we'll bring this meditation to a close. And as we do so, we can choose to stay in this different way of being. We don't have to rush back into trying to fix something, trying to get rid of something. We can actually move through our whole day, just allowing things to come and go. Just letting what comes come and what goes go. Noticing the many opportunities to just be. So whenever you are ready, and only if you want to, you can open your eyes, have a stretch, have a move around, have a drink, whatever you would like to do, whatever the body does. So I hope you enjoyed that opportunity just to really be the effortless self, the infinite self, rather than perhaps our usual way of dealing with something is going into relationship with it being a person, a someone, an object that can seem to do something with these thoughts, with these emotions, whatever arises. And of course, in our meditation, it's mainly internal things like thoughts and emotions we might notice, sensations in the body. It's we're kind of just being with things in our day-to-day life. We might notice it's more external things as well. People saying something to us that seems to trigger a response inside. What if we don't become a person in that moment? You never really can. You never are a person. It just seems like it, really seems like it. This is the way for me that it kept being sustained. What do I do about this thing that arises? This thing in here, this thing out there. Of course, whatever the body needs to do about a situation, it will do. Whatever the mind wants to do about a situation, it will do. But we can simply be with whatever the body and mind are doing, whatever the emotions are doing. And this is living as our authentic self. This is living as the effortless self, in which spiritual practice just seems to happen sometimes, and seems to happen more and more regularly as we just allow what is to be. So I thought I would just leave some time in case there are any questions or anything you'd like to explore with me, or any challenges you're having right now, any parts of your life. We have a hand up. It just says iPhone, so I'm not sure who that is.
Hi, Helen.
Oh, hi, Lo. Hi.
I think this is the first time I've zoomed in on my iPhone, so I think it doesn't have my settings on it. So I found that in today's talk, I found that there was confusion and some frustration arising because a while back, I think in some other talk, I had mentioned to you, that I was practicing surrender around things. And I think you said something to the effect of that there's no one there to surrender.
Mhm.
And, this sounds like, there's a doer here. There's somebody that could, allow the thoughts and the emotions in the first place. And, so I think since that time in the past, I have, um, you know, there's still times when I quote unquote practice surrender, but there's also a lot of times when I look and say, is there even anyone here to allow this
Mhm.
thought or emotion? Is there, you know, or is, and I can sense that or see also that big space in which there's not even ever any allowing or not allowing, because everything just moves through that big space. And that big space doesn't even seem to have the capacity to close. It's sort of
Yeah.
anathema to it. So, since that previous talk, I have been sort of redirect there's been sort of a redirection of focus from the sense of small self sort of melting into what is and allowing what is, into, oh, the I, the bigger I, is already completely allowing, if you want to call it that, but
Yeah.
just completely open. And I can just see that, like, there has been a shape inside that big allowing that has been contracted.
Mhm.
And if I want, I can make another shape that looks like relaxation, but those are still just shapes occurring in that which is already, you could again say open, but that implies that it could, like, close. It really is like an inaccurate word for it.
Yeah, it's really only being what you are, that instruction, isn't it? Just being with what is. It is more just like being with your authentic nature, and less imagining that you could ever close or hold on or push or grab. There's that which is already free about us, this great space of being, let's call it. And then somehow when it takes the shape of a human being, it imagines it can grab and push, and it really gets busy doing that for a very long time. Still, it's free completely in its original nature, and then it forms into the shape inside of it of a human being that seems to be busy push-pulling.
Mhm.
So the relaxing and allowing and all of that are really just pointing us back to that, like you said, that it could never close. It is totally authentically free and could never um, do anything with any arising phenomenon anyway. It's not even creating them on purpose, thoughts, emotions. They're just kind of spilling out of it somehow. It's just a real pointing just back to that effortlessness. And while there is a sense of someone doing, just nudging that sense of a someone, while the great self is imagining itself to be a someone, we'll just say, okay, just relax and let go and open. And somehow that gives us the opportunity to see what's already here and already free. It's really the same thing, just I've only really got one answer to any question, and that is really just to be yourself. It's the same thing I'm saying in every meditation. Anyway, every satsang. So If it sounds like it's different to that, it's only that it is that it sounds like it.
If it sounds like there's like um two different pathways that you're just like kind of pointing to, one would be as while you're imagining you're a separate self, then open.
Yeah.
And then the other pathway would be looking and seeing, even when you think you are opening or surrendering, is there a doer there?
Yeah, it was just going to happen anyway, right? It was going to happen anyway.
Which of those two pathways is the most direct?
The second one, looking and seeing what you really already are and have always been, is the most direct. But paradoxically, sometimes we have to do a little bit of work with the imaginary sense of a separate self to be able to even be interested in something as direct as self-inquiry, looking and seeing, wait a minute, there is no person. So when you get to that point where you can look and see what you already are completely, then that's the best way to go with it, because most of us have such a strong sense of being a someone that has to make this awakening happen. Or I have to dissolve the ego into the great self, when really all that's dissolving is the idea that the ego is any different than the formless consciousness it seems to arise out of. So it's always most direct self-inquiry, but paradoxically, we usually have to do some other path first to get to that point. If I say open up and relax and allow, we're going to try that and it's going to feel nice. And yeah, I want a bit more of that. How do I live like that? How does that become a permanent thing? So.
Yeah, when there was that frustration and arising, and the mind was saying, wait a minute, this is contradictory, and all those things. What I found also, though, that there was something that I think that was arising from the self that said, it was almost like, okay, while you're making shapes, make your self
Make
into
this
a
one
shape that looks most like me, that a shape that's almost a see-through shape.
And that's all the instruction is, really. We keep making the shape of a someone. And all I'm really saying is stop doing that. When you notice you've done it, let it go. When you notice you've done it, let it go. That's it, really.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lean?
Hi, Helen.
Hi.
Hi. Yeah, I noticed there was a longing to push this button to raise my hand, and I don't know, like there's no specific question, and I was like wondering also when I was listening to the conversation with the person called iPhone in this case.
Liesel, yeah.
What is the name?
Liesel.
Liesel, yeah. Yeah, it's like, could something have avoided having pushed this button to raise my hand? Like, there's no person raising a hand. Like, there's nobody here doing anything. Like,
Could you have not raised your hand?
I don't know. Probably not.
Could I have decided
That's
not to speak about this tonight? Could I have just, done something different? If there's only one being moving as all of these bodies, then this whole thing is being danced by all of us together, right? We all might think we're separate people. Okay, I'm going to ask a question now. I'm going to put my hand up, or I might think, okay, I'm going to talk about this subject tonight. And it might even sound like that, but none of that's what's really happening.
Yeah, it just felt like this wanted to happen, but like by whom? Like, it's just something that wanted to happen. or happen, but it didn't even happen.
Not really.
That's
A
yeah,
shape
so,
appearing inside you is apparently talking to another shape appearing inside you.
that's so weird.
But it does that out of love, right? It wants to experience itself, understand itself, whatever we want to call that as the self. Yeah.
It's like for the joy of it, or for like the play.
Yeah. It's beautiful, right? It's just ever clearer about what it really is.
Yeah, in a way it feels very peaceful. Like I also notice now, right now when I'm speaking, I feel very peaceful. I don't feel nervous or something.
Just being what you are, right? You're just showing up as these words, this conversation.
Yeah, it doesn't really feel personal when I'm speaking now. It's strange.
And just gradually your whole life will become like that, right? More and more. Just it just is what's happening, and that's totally watched from what is real. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. We'll go to Gillian, and we'll probably be out of time.
Hi.
Hi, love.
So my question is, why is it so hard when there's suffering to just allow? Like, what makes it feel impossible? Because I listened to your talk and I did the meditation, and it's so easy when everything's good. It's so easy when things are working out and I feel good to just sit and, feel expensive and detached from all my problems. But when there's suffering, it just seems like impossible, and I can be like a rat running around in a cage like for hours, and I just don't understand why it's so hard.
There's an idea inside us all that if I push against what I don't like, it's going to go away. And that idea really starts coming into play when there's some kind of really heavy emotion or contraction or something. And if we can just take a step back in the calmer moment and say, does that actually work? And in fact, is my running around trying to do something with this helping at all? Or could it even be the idea that I'm running around that's actually reflecting as this disturbance and this contraction? So taking another step back and saying, well, I notice that when I think I'm a someone that can do something, my body really doesn't, it kind of feels really tight, and some emotions happen, and perhaps some experience happens in my life that I don't like. And when I'm just being, I feel peaceful and open and maybe expansive and all of those things. But I'm watching both of those. I'm watching both of those. When I think I'm a someone, or when I realize I'm no one, nobody, both of those are states that are happening in front of me, oscillating. And I see them both. And from the place that I see this open, close, from there, the seeing of that is totally already free. So just a little identification pops up as wanting the open, free, beautiful, expansive thing, and not wanting the contracted, awful, yucky stuff, right? But can you just take a step back with me metaphorically now and just go, what if I'm just watching all of that? What if it's not my job to sort out what's going on in the body even, or the mind? It's a huge relief then. If we think we have to do something, we'll have a lot of stuff to do and it'll keep coming.
I'm trying to understand what happens, because like it can be just like this, suddenly I'm peaceful. Oh, I didn't mean to do that.
No worries.
That's funny.
Well, it works as well. It works.
Yeah, it could be like I've been freaking out for hours, or I've been watching the body and the mind freaking out for hours, feeling like I'm freaking out for hours, you know. And there's like lots of suffering, and then suddenly boom, it's gone. And
Because it was always going to come and it was always going to go. In that moment when you're really trying to make yourself feel better and you can't, that's an opportunity to remember, I am that place in which this storm is happening and passing through.
Right.
If life shows us anything, it's that our attempts to get rid of these things don't work. And our attempts to keep a hold of the places that feel nicer. Reality,
so
though,
just to remember that I can't do anything, basically.
and you don't need to. Because if you leave it at I can't do anything, you feel utterly powerless. You are already free. What is that place that's watching? Like really curious. What if you don't play with the phenomenal thing at all?
It's like I feel like there's nowhere to take refuge from this storm. So it's almost
because
like
you think you're inside the storm.
Yeah.
What if you got the space in which it's happening? Right? That's the thing too. And even in that moment, you know, you might not be able to do any inquiry or anything, but just to like, is this really what is actually happening? What seems to be happening right now? Is this really what's actually the truth? You know, just an opening. And then you can kind of slip out of identifying with it. Like the faster I struggle, the worse it gets. So what if I just try and see if is there another way to be with this? Even just that question is an open doorway into freedom. Only an open question in that moment is going to help, because anything else is a sense that you can do something.
Yeah.
Can you feel the difference?
Yes. Yeah. The struggle is what's the struggle, and the trying to find, you know, how to get out of it, and what should I do, and what can I do, and how can I stop this, and I want to feel better. And
so maybe just write down the question that works for you in that moment. Like, is there another way to be with this?
Yeah.
And the beingness kind of goes, let's see, you know, not even figuring anything out, just let's see. And there's a relaxing in that, right? Wonderful.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's helpful. The open question. Yeah, instead of looking for something to do.
Yeah, it's never going to help, right? But
and it's like it's such a vicious cycle, because when I'm in it, I'm just like, you know, stop trying to do something, but even that's a doing. So
yeah,
just kind of like feeling like a
that's why
know.
the refuge you're seeking is some opening, some question, right? It's always worked for me.
Okay.
It's the only thing that worked.
Yeah, there you go. What you just said is good. The refuge I'm looking for is an opening, is not a doing. Okay.
Wonderful. Good to talk to you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I will hand it back to you, Shauna. Thank you so much for having me, and super excited to see some of you next week coming. Yay. Thank you.